Welcome to another episode of What's Up Irvine. I'm Curtis Drever, your host, and this podcast is about everything that makes Irvine a great city, its people, its culture, influence, and opportunities. My hope is that by following this podcast, you will learn something new and interesting about our city and feel more connected in our community. So with that, today we have in our studio a special guest, Scott Henderson, CEO from Doing Good Works. Welcome, Scott, to What's Up Irvine.
Right on. Thank you, Curtis. Appreciate you having me here.
Oh, you're welcome. So before we get into the main interview, I like to read a bio, so sure. give our readers some familiarity with your background before we really begin. So I'm just going to jump into that. So Scott is CEO and co-founded Doing Good Works with Jordan Bartlett in 2015 after becoming aware of the significant challenges faced by youth who are aging out of the foster care system. He became very passionate of wanting to change outcomes of these young adults and focused on providing the tools, skills, and mindset they need to reach their full potential. With a background in supply chain management, he has reimagined how a business can operate and redefined what it means to achieve business success. Scott uses his expertise to create positive change in the world, driven by a passion for sustainability and social impact. He is dedicated to using business as a force for good. And their company motto is, be kind, love more, do good. So welcome, Scott, again.
Thank you, Curtis. Appreciate that.
Yeah, we've met for several times for, I don't know, the last 5-7 years. Yep. So it's just so exciting. I'm so glad you're here because it's just what you're doing in the world right now, especially in our local community, I think is exciting. And I think our viewers are really going to resonate with it. I said that word right there. Yeah. So I'd like to really start with like, who is Scott as a person? I kind of go deep initially. So, so I'll just start out with, so what is the best lesson your mom or dad taught you?
Great question. I've got an answer for both mom and dad.
Okay.
And as the reason that I started Doing Good Works was really from words that I got from my father as he was in hospice.
Oh wow!
I was struggling with an organization that I was working with prior to starting Doing Good Works, and he looked at me and said, "Just remember, no wasted days."
Oh wow!
And so that was, as you can imagine, quite meaningful.
Wait, how old were you?
This was 12 years ago.
12 years, okay.
Yeah,
no wasted
days. And it was really from that moment that you really reset some of the priorities, some of the things that were acceptable in a day in, day out operation that sometimes we just have a tendency to overlook or say, I can get over that, or we're okay with that. It was that... those words of wisdom, if you will, to not waste any days, to really understand that at some particular point we're all going to be called home. And so what we get to do on a daily really does make a difference. So yes. So that was from Dad and my mother, who will remind me to this day to not spend it before we've earned it. So she's been the gatekeeper of the family, dollars and always had, we didn't come from great means, but Mom always had a few dollars stashed away.
Okay.
And so as we've been having some business success and things that have been happening within our community, my mom will inevitably remind me, don't spend it until you've earned it. So.
Those are two great lessons.
Yeah.
Two great lessons. So yeah. What you can take a lot. That's a whole conversation right there of those.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, very very blessed by the upbringing and folks that both my mom and dad they weren't from they certainly weren't from foster care, but both had some very challenging upbringings.
Okay.
And they both made a decision to change what they didn't have, and I was the recipient of their efforts to change generational cycles.
Yeah.
And again, I'm very blessed as with the work that we are doing now, as we know, as humans, change is
Yes.
hard. So again, I've been very blessed that I had two parents that made that choice, and truly through the grace of God, through my father came to Christ through my mom's belief. My mom has been in part of the church since she was 14, 15, and really helped Dad along his path. So again, I feel very, very blessed to think back. And again, part of the reason that we're focused on outcomes or working with young people that have been impacted by the foster care system is because they haven't been given that same support, that same scaffolding that I was graced with. So that was the motivation, part of to choose or to be in this space.
So, with your childhood, do you have a fond memory that really stands out?
Yeah, I do. We, as I mentioned, we didn't have a ton of money growing up, but my family, we always took family vacations. There was always a time where we would jump into whatever vehicle we had at the time, and there was many of them, and just travel for usually 2 to 3 weeks. I've had the opportunity to visit most every 50, I think I've been to 48 states, 47, and the opportunity just to travel with my family and get a chance to see that. So, and I've been able to enjoy that opportunity with my family and kids, and so we travel quite a bit.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That's a different experience for sure.
Yes, certainly.
So, fast forwarding a little bit more, or maybe it's still childhood, but do you have a tipping point in your life that really changed your course?
About the same time frame when Dad had said to me, no wasted days. I had been recently remarried, and my wife, who is a volunteer for CASA, and that stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. That is a volunteer organization, and she had been volunteering for that organization, and it was through her experience that we started to really understand what changes, what outcomes happen with young people in the system, and really the poor outcomes. And as long as we've been keeping record of outcomes in emancipated foster youth, the numbers really haven't
define
changed.
Emancipated foster youth.
Thank you. Young people that have what we call aged out of the system, and that used to be 18 here in California. That is now 21. There are policies and programs that are extending past those ages, but typically emancipated would say
18 to 21,
and a little bit older. So
so back to your wife.
And so what the tipping point was really, as I was running another company at the time, and we had talked about, my wife and I, what was needed, and there was such a need for housing, there was such a need for transportation, some of the unique challenges you can imagine as an 18 or 21-year-old without a bunch of support system around you. There was just a lot of life that could fall through the cracks.
Life, right?
100%. So. We were imagining as we were going to enjoy our successful careers and then give back to the community through a traditional philanthropic giving platform. And I've shared this with you before. I was actually on my way to the job that I was working for, the company I was running at the time, and God said to me, now. And it was very clear. Now. And I argued with him.
You were driving a car.
I was driving in a car, and there was like, what do you mean? My conversation with God, for your listeners there, was one of those. But I have a plan, and this is what it looks like, and we're pretty committed to it. And I, not audibly, but again, heard very clearly now. And so I had the opportunity I called my wife. I said, I believe I'm being called to do something relative to the foster care community now. And within about 4 seconds, she said, okay, let's go.
4 seconds.
She was there. Very supportive.
Wow, God was already at work.
Yeah. So within about a month, I had tendered my resignation and started along the journey of what is now Doing Good Works. And so that was, and so
Yeah.
I was,
Wow.
interestingly enough, Curtis, I grew up in the church, spent time, I was leading a men's Bible study on Saturday, very active in the church. And the challenge to me was the question of, do you really believe what you say you believe?
Yeah.
And that tipping point was can I believe in what God is asking us to do and live by faith?
Yeah.
Because I was really good at talking to people about what it meant to live by faith until it came to very personal, do I believe that? Can I do that?
Yeah.
And that's not been easy. It's been a lesson that I continue to learn daily. I explain it to people that know me. I continue to try to hand the wheel back to God and let Him drive. I'm really good at grabbing the wheel when I can recognize, hey, I've been there, done that. I'll get it from here. Thanks.
Yeah.
And fortunately, again, through His grace, He allows me to continue on this journey. And that's one of the things that we talk about with our youth that we work with, is that there's not an end point to the personal journey. Right? You get to learn. You have the privilege and opportunity to continue to learn about ourselves and grow and adjust in that journey, both in our faith and in our communities, in our lives. You can find out areas, and we talk a lot about the impacts of trauma, and how it affects everyone's brain, right? How the brain adapts to those traumas, ultimately leads to how we behave. What I think, how I filter the world around me, and sometimes we do that and we're not aware of it. Right, we're not even aware of the unconscious bias that I might carry, and then as you're through this journey and recognize, oh, that might be me. It's easy to sometimes point it out in other people, and I'm really good at that. But learning, being able to reflect and have an inward understanding of who you are, and saying and being this, and I'll get back to our corporate motto, and being okay with that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That understanding, being aware of yourself and saying, these are the things that I really like and do well, and these are some things that I might need to learn a little bit more or understand where that comes from. Right? Why do I have that filter? And another end, I sometimes say, when I had kids, I would say things that came out of my mouth that I wasn't even sure I believed. I had just grown up with it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily wrong. It just wasn't sure that I believed what I was saying.
Yeah.
Right? And so I had to step back and go, wait a minute, I need to really think about that. And that, that part of that journey, as I say, and then going, no, I don't, not exactly, but close. And then creating something that worked for our family and worked for my understanding and my own viewpoint. It's been phenomenal. I've been absolutely blessed.
Now, you did it.
Yeah.
And you're still in it, and
still
you're
in
moving
it.
forward.
Still in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's very pivotal.
Yes.
That's for sure. So
thank
what
you.
What has being CEO of your organization taught you about life?
Very much to learn how to listen. Both listen, listening to God as far as letting Him lead what this looks like. Because I wish I could tell you that we had a very direct path of success. You've known me long enough.
Yeah.
We've done what we say internally is we fail really well, and we fail quickly. But we learn from that, and in the business concept or the idea of where the business was headed, the one thing that's always been clear was the mission.
Yes.
Right? The products, the business that we're in, the things that we do, none of those things mattered. We are, as you know, we're a for-profit business, and we decided we wanted to use the for-profit model, the capitalist model, to affect social change.
Yeah.
And so the product really didn't really make a difference. The business that we were in, it was like anything that we were doing needed to have an end result of changing outcomes or allowing us to help impact lives of the youth.
Yeah.
And everything else.
Focus was the people and the
100%,
person.
100%. So I think I answered your question.
Yeah. You did. So it's So what do you like most about doing what you do and being in your role?
Yeah, it's interesting as from the marketplace traditionally, right? The scoreboard looks about how big you are, money, the top line, the bottom line, the victories you've had from a sales perspective. Again, typical capital.
Yeah, you look at the money as the success
typical
factor,
capital
right?
scorekeeping.
How much is in the bank?
And that's important because that's business, right?
Yeah.
That's how we fund the
Don't
mission.
spend it till you have
and
it.
don't spend it until you have
Yeah,
it. You're right. Very very good advice. But what we get to experience in our business is human transformation. We get to work with young people that we don't do anything necessarily special or uniquely different. It is warehouse work. It is customer service. It is graphic design. It's business. But our approach to that and our approach with the young people, in a way, and as I mentioned, we're a trauma-informed business. So again, and that really is a fancy way to say we really have tried to listen and be empathetic to understanding others.
Yeah.
Right to the core of that.
It's not just show up and work. It's got this whole.
And here's your job description, and here's the things. Here's the tasks that you go do. It really is, and as you can imagine, we have, as all businesses do, we have people that come through our doors, and life has happened. And sometimes in young people from the foster care system, they have had more life happen overnight or something that is unique, and it's not good enough to just say, well, we have business and let's move on.
Leave it at the door.
We have stopped lead team meetings and spent 4 hours working with a young person who the weekend prior had been jumped at gunpoint, and his response to that was to carry a gun.
Okay. Wow.
He shared that in our roundtable meeting, and we stopped the meeting so that we could really get to the core of what was going on in that young man, right? He was scared. It was a traditional response to the street that he grew up on. And we just knew there was something to do different. And that part is unique, right? So that was 4 or 5 years ago. And I will tell you that young man is amazingly successful in what he is doing, not only in his career, but for his life. How he sees things. Unbelievable. And we get to live that with the young people that we're working with, and it's that human transformation is extraordinary.
That's the inner workings of your company, of really what happens there day in and day out. It's a treat. It really is. It is the highlight of what I get to do in watching young people be or experience something that they haven't felt before internally. Because as we know, we're all wonderfully made. And sometimes we don't always feel wonderful or wonderfully made. And so our opportunity to provide an environment that creates it is a safe place. Right. Felt safety is important. And then they get to be who they are. And that's a blessing. So on the other side of the coin there, what's my most challenging or the most difficult part?
Doesn't always work. Doesn't always work when we see it in our time. Right? I wish I could say that we have 100% success rate of young people that we've worked with or efforts that we've put in, and every one of those has gone on to be just this great success story. That's not reality. The part of that, though, that we really believe is that they've had an opportunity to experience something that they may not have experienced before. And as I said to you before, that's part of their journey, right? That is not my responsibility to make sure that they're perfectly okay in the time that we get to spend with them. That's the beauty of letting God do the heavy lifting. Ours is just to act as the hands and feet and do the best that we know how at that given moment. And then it does take some of the, like I said, the day in, day out pressure. It doesn't make it any less disappointing or sad or frustrating that we don't get to see all of that. But again, going back to if we're living by faith and we know that we're only called to do what we can do to the best of our ability.
Can't do everything.
Can't do everything.
So I know you shared a story another time about like the extent that you go to help employees that, I know you said because your location, you're by a train station. Some of your employees actually don't drive, so
Yep.
you actually pick them up at the train station in a company car or your own, pick them up, bring them to work, take them back, just so that they can actually be employed and be in that environment, right? Things like that.
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah,
And we pay for Lyft rides. As you can imagine, a lot of our young people either don't have access to transportation, they don't have driver's license. They just they're in an area. So part of the reason that we relocated to the offices in Irvine we are in is to utilize the Irvine station as a transportation hub for our population.
Right.
And we've worked with Enterprise to do carpooling. So we've rented one of those to pick up young people from the train station, bring them to our office.
Yeah.
I
just think that's so neat. When you told me that a while ago, I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. Some companies would do that, but not many.
Yeah.
Not many.
And part of that is the outcome of again working within our youth. We're finding that there's just been so many barriers, right, and to the outcomes. We would say, there's 3% of the population that typically ends up as a college graduate. Lots of early childhood pregnancies and single moms and homelessness. I mean, our homelessness issue that we can all visibly see. So many of those folks, unfortunately, have come out of the foster care system, and it was one of those. Well, great, we can get young people a job. Going back to my supply chain career,
it needs to be more.
But really, the challenge wasn't just the job; it was everything else about that. It was how do I get them to a job when we don't have access to public transportation that can get them 20 miles away.
You guys are doing so much more.
We keep looking for ways to address those holistic issues, those problems or those challenges, those hurdles that we have in front of that population, to demonstrate that you can solve them.
Yeah.
You just have to be a little more creative and think. Again, we are blessed by multiple different ways.
Remember your mission and things like that, and who you're.
And it just allows us to, allows us to reinvest into finding those solutions to change outcomes.
So, how can our viewers help you?
Great question. Well, a couple things. I mean, to be involved, and I said to be involved. We're the core of our business is the swag. We're swag with purpose.
Swag with purpose. Yeah.
So we really focused after corporate.
Well, actually, so I know I'm going to pitch for you though.
Thank you.
You make promotions. You do banners. I think we got this banner from you
it's
actually, and so isn't it great? And coffee mugs, pens, all these corporate promotional items your company makes. And you're employing, help employ the emancipated youth, right? And you do other things too. You've got some really neat programs.
We do a lot of other things, but that's the core, and it's been great. We have great corporate partners. We have folks that really, part of what we wanted to do was to demonstrate to the world you didn't have to spend more to do good.
Yeah.
So we compete with other folks that are in our space. We want to give them a choice. We do things, what we would like to believe is we do taking care of customers really well.
Yeah.
It's part of that servant leadership that we teach internally to talk about, treating others like you want to be treated, the golden rule. And there's so much of those just life lessons that translate into good business. Yeah. So we have been blessed through that journey, and that's allowed us to invest in other programs. We have a division called Foster Greatness.
Foster Greatness,
and that is there's Foster Your Greatness, a masterclass, which is really a peer-to-peer mentoring program that we have launched. We're on our second cohort for that, and then we have another division called Healthy Humans, and that is really to take all of the trauma learning that we are experiencing and kind of working through for our foster population. We looked at ourselves and said, this is just good information for all of humanity, better ways to continue our own personal journeys, and to be the best version that we can be of ourselves on that particular day. Yeah. So it has been phenomenal, Curtis. We, like I said, very, very blessed in what we do, not without its challenges, but we just keep listening.
You're you're doing good work. I know there's so many things. Each time I meet you, you've got this new category you're starting that is it's just amazing. So it's really fun seeing that just
Thank you.
grow. So a couple fun things. So if you go out to dinner, what's your go-to food?
Typically, if it's a go-to, we're going to end up at an Italian restaurant, and it will always be tiramisu because I've never had
You start with tiramisu?
I will always order tiramisu because every place I've had it's always different. Everyone has a different version of how they do a tiramisu, and I've yet to find one that's been bad.
Really? Good for you.
Yeah.
I've had some bad ones, but I know what you mean. Okay, tiramisu will bring you back to the restaurant.
That's right.
Do you have whenever you do have spare time or free time? Do you have a favorite hobby or?
So I love to cook. I find that which is new for me, maybe in the last 7-8 years. And it is something that's just very relaxing. And I've been told I'm fairly good at it. I challenge myself to do some unique things. My family always loves to send TikTok new meals or new dishes or something so we've had some that
challenge Scott time or something.
We've had some that have worked out quite well, and we've had some that have failed miserably. But we've always got something to eat.
Fail quickly, feel good.
That's correct. Right? That is correct.
Yes. So as kind of a takeaway, sort of winding down our interview, what would you like our followers to know about you? What is either a takeaway or?
That I think in my personal journey, is waking up and forgiving myself for the day before, right, and learning how to be my best that day. I have a very short memory anymore, and it used to not be that way. And really what I want to talk about why we have the business of be kind, love more, and do good. And my team makes fun of me because I can only remember 3 things, and so that's pretty simple. They boil it down to things I can remember. Be kind is the outward expression. It's how we treat others, right? We get to wake up in the morning and choose what it is that I deliver to the world.
Be kind,
and that is just being kind, right? We I don't care where you're coming from. We need more of that, and it's an opportunity and something that we can all do. And so that's be kind. Love more is really about learning to love ourselves, right? Learning to love who I am and being okay with the parts that I don't like.
Yeah.
And knowing that that's acceptable and just continue to work on that, right? That is a neat opportunity to say, because now if I love myself, if I learn to love myself in that journey, I have an opportunity to go back and continue to be kind and do that in a very authentic way, and allow in deep relationship, and that's what we're here for. And then the last one is really the do good. And that is taking action, right? I think there's so many folks that want to sit behind a screen or do something and have an opinion that they would like to share about why it's broken or they don't like it or some other thing that they would like to say. And if we had more doers versus sayers, we'd be okay.
It's like do good now.
Do good now.
Right?
Do something.
So,
do something.
Well, thank you. Thank you again for sharing with us here on What's Up Irvine. And thank you for joining us again on another episode. And if you liked what you heard today, wherever you're following us, either on whatever social medias, could you like us or follow us? We would appreciate that. And also, if you have any people or topics that you would find interesting and would like us to talk about, send us an email at info@loveirvine.org. Email us at info@loveirvine.org. And thank you again for joining us on What's Up Irvine.